now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Miracle Brokers International is a shipping, moving, and logistics company. You get all our expertise in one stop. Our motto is shop, ship, and save. All shipments are important to MBI and will track your items during shipment, clear through customs on arrival, and deliver to your door. MBI will spend the time in lines to get your cargo for you so you can be more productive with your time. Miracle Brokers, the solution broker. 345-925-5989 or miraclebrokers.com.
We're going to be giving away some fantastic prizes to one lucky winner. Actually, there's more than one, but we're surprising one right now. She's actually in the customer care room thinking that she's sorting out a bill for her daughter, but she's in for a bigger surprise. Let's see what happens.
Your daughter nominated you as her real life superhero, and you won. So we have our superhero bundle for you for a year, a brand new TV, and a brand new phone with some accessories.
Congratulations. So this is your brand new Samsung crystal clear 55-inch TV. And we also hooked you up with some Samsung gear, free phone, got your headset. We're also going to give you free internet and TV for a whole entire year, okay?
My mother, she has dedicated her life to ensuring I had a great childhood and upbringing. She worked approximately 26 years at the Marriott Hotel and provided for my siblings and I. Through all the things that I've threw at her, she never once made us feel like she wouldn't handle it or couldn't make a way. The definition of a super mom and a strong black woman. She is the cornerstone of our family and a great example of a mother and an incredible grandmother.
Yeah, Mom, make some noise for Mom!
Thank you very much.
Oh, man.
I appreciate it.
So we're gonna surprise this customer. We'll see what happens here and how surprised she is. Her daughter is like already started to cry. So this is already amazing. Let's see what happens next. Surprise!
You got Here's your new phone and some goodies. Your balloons and your brand new TV.
It's all yours. It's all yours.
Mommy. Yeah. Put this on your head. I would love to say that my superhero is my mom, Marilda Cayasso Miller. She has been my rock, and when I felt like giving up on myself, she is always there to push me out of the slum and tell me that I am enough. She believes in my dreams and my talents even more than myself, and when everyone turns their back on me, she's there with open arms. Even if she doesn't get this, I still want the world to know that my mom is the best in the world, and I love her further than the moon and back. She's a strong black woman. Even through her difficulties, she's always helping the community, her church, the family, and her friends. Me having to share her is amazing, and I'm proud to call her my mother. A phenomenal black woman you are, Mom, and I pray that God lengthens your life, that I can give just as much as you have given me, and even more, because you're deserving of it all. So, Mommy, you're my superhero. I love you so much. Oh, sorry. Love you too. You deserve it all. Oh gosh. You are so deserving. Mom. You deserve so much, and I just want to say thank you. And you are the best mother that I could ever have. The best in the world. Thank you.
Yeah, Mom.
Oh, love you, mommy. All right, good morning, folks. Who is your superhero? I love every time I see that, I feel like I get teary eyed because I know one of those mothers. And when you see moms making amazing sacrifices throughout the lives of their kids to make it, a better world for them, I think it's just amazing. So good morning to all of you guys. Good morning, Olivia. Hi, Felix, Evelyn. Andy's upset about commercials. Oh, Andy, don't be a party pooper. Come on now. Somebody's got to pay the bills, Andy. If you don't want to see commercials, pay the bills so we can operate commercial free. Nothing in life is free. Wow. Content can be free up to a point, but then there becomes a point when you got to start paying for it. You know what is amazing is in the world of content creators and when I say content creators, I'm specifically talking about news. I think a lot of people don't even appreciate what goes on behind the background and what happens and how people need to be able to level up their game to keep you guys interested. So Andy, if CMR didn't have interesting stories, interesting video, if we weren't doing things a little bit differently, why would you even bother tuning in? You wouldn't tune in at all to even see the commercials. So it's a little bit of give and take. And John, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien, gracias. Andy, take the first 5 minutes making your tea so that you don't have to watch the commercials. If you're really that bothered by it, most people are not really that bothered by it. Who else is here with me? Felix, good morning to you, my dear. Evelyn is always here. I remember to check my mic. Thank you, Evelyn. This morning I said, I don't know why twice yesterday I had a little bit of a mic issue. So let me ensure this morning that the mic is good. Olivia, thank you. How about that thunderstorm last night? Am I the only one who experienced that? Power outages, thunderstorm. I always know when there's a power outage, even if it's slight, because of the microwave. Got to reset the microwave today, right? I'm good. Got a little bit of this sinus headache going on. And I got to tell you, it is a little bit annoying. So I'm going to seek out some sinus specific relief today. Whether that's jumping in the ocean or something, I don't know. I got to see what the ocean is looking like because I don't want to go out there if it's too rough. Lisa in the BRAC, I have some good news for you, I think. Let me just see now. Okay. Yes. So, Lisa, I'm excited. I got an announcement for everybody. Lisa, we are coming to the BRAC. Yay! Okay. So I just woke up to an email, a little bit of confirmation email. We were trying to work out a few things with accommodations and stuff like that. So wanted to make sure we were good to go. So it's going to be it's going to seem like a last minute trip, but I've actually been planning it in the background. So it looks like we are coming tomorrow. I just got to make arrangements for little Miss Coco to stay with some friends. And yes, we'll be coming to the BRAC. I'm so excited to see my BRACers. It's been a minute. When was the last time I was on the BRAC? Oh my gosh. I want to say it was like 2 years ago, or at least a year ago, but I think it was more like 2 years ago. It's been a while.
Wow. So I'm excited to come to Cayman Brack, and we're going to have fun. We are going to be promoting some local businesses, and I'm absolutely excited about that. So if you live on Cayman Brack and you want to see me, yeah, I'm going to be there. So I am super excited. All right, folks. Always working on these little things behind the scenes, and that's what I'm telling you. Andy, it takes money to get things done around here, especially in the Cayman Islands. Hip hip hooray. So listen, the other thing that's going on is here at CMAR, we are getting ready for elections 2021. And what that means, Andy, is unfortunately for you, if you don't like politics, you're going to be listening to some politics, some politricks, and we are going to be diving in and deciphering the difference. And we are going to be bringing people on this show. And yes, they're going to be advertising with us even. And you may get a little bit sick of that, but we need to know who are the good candidates. So we need to be able to separate the good from the bad, from the mediocre. And which ones do we want in there? We don't want the bad. We prefer the good. Sometimes a mediocre person might squeeze in there under the guise of they've got potential and they can do no harm. That's what we always think. But I tell you what, one thing I've learned here in the Cayman Islands is the trickle down effect when it comes to politics is swift. And so this concept that politicians can do no harm is misguided. So we need to start diving in deep. Hello, Lisa, beautiful Lisa. Make sure that you link me when I come to Cayman Brack. I'd love to be able to give you a mug. We've got Alice, who is joining us this morning. Irvelyn, what was that oh Lord about? Was that about the Cayman Brack trip or about something else? You can't just say, oh Lord, and then leave us hanging. We're like, what's going on? Senor Paul, how are you, my love? We have beautiful Larry. Good morning, Louie. So yes, let me tell you guys about court yesterday, because I'm sure you're all interested. So I was on my way to court when all of a sudden I ran into some heavy traffic. And I was thinking to myself, what on earth is this now? Like, seriously. You know, kids are doing orientation. So I'm thinking to myself, has traffic, like school traffic, restarted already? Gosh, my poor little brain couldn't quite process that, because we are level 2 minimum suppression, and I'm feeling like, why am I having to deal with traffic? Anyway, oh yes, that thunderstorm. Oh yes, we'll talk about that in a second here. But so yeah, so I was sitting in traffic, twiddling my thumbs and thinking, oh man, I'm gonna be late for court. I had to message a few people, some of the lawyers at court, and say, please, I'm late. Thankfully for me, court starts a little bit late. So by the time I got there, it was fine. But I was thinking, man, the one thing I do not miss through all of this COVID situation is the morning commute and the morning traffic. And even the evening traffic is nowhere where it used to be. Like, you'd sit in traffic for an hour and a half just to drive 15 minutes. So I must admit that it wasn't back to school traffic yet. And I'm really hoping that, that doesn't return anytime soon. It was actually a little bit of an accident. So a driver lost some of his load, essentially, is what happened. And as luck would have it, CMR is always in the perfect place at the perfect time. And so we were able to snap that photo and let you guys know, because there were a lot of people who were like, what is going on with the traffic this morning? I saw it in some of the women's group, the moms groups. Everybody's just like, whoa, traffic is no bueno. What is going on? So it looks like his load, everybody was saying liquor, but to be honest, I did not take that good of a look at the actual contents of what it was. I assumed it was a water truck, but it could be that it was actually something else. So we'll have a look at that picture here in a second. Just uploading it to the computer. And always a cautionary tale for everyone to be careful when you are driving with a load of anything. So, this is why the police say it's illegal, unlawful, and dangerous to have people as a load on the outside of your vehicle. So whether it's like on the back of a truck or anything like that, you got to be super, super careful. So yes, Lisa, we're making it happen. Lisa says she's going to be up and ready for us on the BRAC. Now, the BRAC is a different vibe, folks. So I can't promise you that I'm going to be up at 7:15 on the BRAC to do a show. I might have to do like a midday show, because on the BRAC, I might actually want to just sleep in and take it easy. I don't know yet. We're going to have a think about that one and see how that works out. So Evelyn is making mention of this thunderstorm. And I must tell you that it was quite the storm last night. Now, I don't know if this storm was island-wide, and if this is the remnants of Laura. Now, Laura is actually a hurricane, by the way. She is no longer a thunderstorm. And in fact, I just saw that Laura is, the National Hurricane Center has gone live with their latest updates on Laura. So in case you haven't noticed, I should inform you that Facebook, we're going to talk about this tomorrow, has a whole new look and design, and it is very different. This is the biggest change that I have actually seen from Facebook in quite some time. So tomorrow is Tech Thursday. So tune in. I'll show you a couple of tips and tricks in relation to Facebook, a couple of tips and tricks in relation to WhatsApp, because I'm realizing that a lot of you are still not using some of these applications to their fullest potential. So we want to make sure that you guys are getting the most bang for your buck out of things like Facebook. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. Yesterday's press conference, we went over last night, but in case you missed last night's show, the biggest talking points out of the press conference include no more mask mandatory. And we did kind of break this to you guys yesterday morning during the show, because we got the actual regulations as we were on air. So I was tickled pink to let you guys know that some big changes were coming. And so we did put that up as soon as the show was over. So no more mask. That includes your kids returning to school. So that is a much welcomed bit of news, I think, for a lot of parents. And in addition to that, there will be public gatherings now permitted up to 250 people, which I think is a really good number. Outside of like big events, probably like Bada and that sort of thing, I don't think that there are probably a whole lot of gatherings that have more than that. Maybe something like Taste of Keyman, which I don't know when they're going to be hosting that this year. That's a event that draws thousands, obviously. So that's a little bit different. But yeah, outside of that, I think that most churches can certainly handle 250. They can work with those numbers. I don't think that that's an unreasonable number at all. So unfortunately for our neighbors out of Jamaica, we wish that we had some better news in terms of what is going on there, because it is not a good situation. Oh man, Jamaica is being hit hard. So let me tell you what some of the latest news is coming out of Jamrock. They have some additional deaths to report. So just allow me to pull this up, please. Let me just see here. Give me 1 second. So 3 more COVID-related deaths. This is very, very unfortunate. Additional infections. So now they have had a single day record. This is so not good. So let me just have a look here. So 120 new cases. So that is in 24 hours. That is the most that they've had in 24 hours, and 3 more COVID deaths. So I would dare say there were a lot of people who were commenting that, they thought Jamaica was doing a good job and things were under control. And I always kind of wondered where they were getting that information from. I wasn't ever quite sure, to be honest. But I think they weren't really paying attention. So deaths is now at 19, 1,732 cases. The 3 new deaths include elderly people, as can be expected, since they are the most vulnerable. A 76-year-old woman from St. Catherine, an 89-year-old woman from Kingston. Oh my gosh, 89. Can you imagine making it to almost 90 and then COVID takes you out? But COVID does not care and does not discriminate. And so they also have a 70-year-old man from Kingston and St. Andrew. Recorded 21 more recoveries, bringing that number to 840. So 61 males, these are the new cases, the 121 new include 61 males, 59 females, and ages ranging from 2 to 91. That 91-year-old, whoa. St. Catherine recorded 72, Kingston 23, Portland 15, St. Thomas 5, Clarendon 1, Trelawney 1, St. Anne 2, and St. Mary 1. So they know that 2 are contacts from confirmed cases, and they're trying to trace the other 118. They've got 5 moderately ill, 3 critically ill among the 801 active cases that are now under observation. So I think it's fair to say, unfortunately, for Jamaica, that this record high for them represents a real problem. And they may want to shut down the country. They've gone back into some sort of a lockdown, a curfew for all of Jamaica that was announced a couple days ago. But there comes a point when you kind of realize it's a little bit too late already. So, quite a sad situation. And this is why yesterday the premier was saying that we as a country are still moving towards trying to look at an October 1st reopening date. Yeah, so I don't think that, I personally don't think that's realistic, but again, that's what they're aiming for. And I guess at the end of the day, you've got to plan and kind of aim for something. And that's the aim right now. So it's unfortunate, but we have to just take it kind of one day at a time, to be honest. And so I get the need to continually reassess the situation with some sort of a plan. Moving towards reopening, I think that as long as we are in this immense hotspot situation that we are, Jamaica has it under control, Trinidad has it under control, pretty much all over the Caribbean, they shut back down. I do not think that we will be in a position to reopen. We haven't looked at our COVID numbers all week. So let's have a quick look at the map, Johns Hopkins University, and let's talk about what's happening elsewhere in the world in relation to COVID before we get to our protest this topic. So, Morna, thank you so much for that question. By the way, I haven't done an Ask Seek Out Sandy segment in a while where you guys just come and get to ask all your questions. And I think we're long overdue for that. But Morna, the short answer to your question is no. Kids do not have to wear masks in school. But it does appear that they have to wear them on buses because buses are considered public transport. So the decision came down yesterday, the day before. There was a change in the regulations. So the school officials are now scrambling to make the necessary adjustments in order to accommodate kids without masks, which really shouldn't be that much in terms of adjustments, to be honest. Lisa is of the opinion that Jamaicans underestimate this virus, and because of the election campaign, it spiked. But I am still praying that it gets flattened. Well, I think a couple of things have happened. I think that that's true, that they haven't really been taking it seriously. From what I understand, of course, I'm not in Jamaica, but I do speak to in-laws and family members there almost daily. What they have said to me is that apparently a lot of Jamaicans kind of like, oh, this is just the flu. Don't worry about it. So they're still in the mindset that we were kind of at early on, where we were not like really understanding the full implications of the coronavirus and what that means for us and the entire world. Is that this isn't just the flu. This has a much higher death rate than the flu, a much higher infection rate. And because none of us have an immunity to it, at least with the influenza A, B, C, whatever, most of us have had the flu in our lives. And we have some sort of immunity to it. And in addition to that, there are flu shots that we can take that, they might give you 60% protection. But guess what? 60% protection is better than a big fat zero, right? So we have some protection from the flu, and we have zero, nada, zig, like nothing from coronavirus. So I think that that is where zilch is what I meant to say. That is where we need to have a serious think about how we're approaching this virus. And yes, if the average person is not taking it seriously, that means that the government can issue all of the warnings that they want, all of the shutdowns and curfews and lockdown. But you need the individual citizens to pay attention and to understand that this is quite a serious situation. And that seriousness means that honestly, you need to wear your mask if you're in an outbreak country. You need to engage in social distancing. And an election campaign kicking off during a heightened period is probably not the best idea in the world. I don't know why Jamaica called the election when they did. I understand that apparently they can call, I think the Jamaican electoral system is different than what we experience here in Cayman. Because you know how right now we already know that we're going to have election May the 26th of next year. That has been fixed by the governor. He made the announcement some months ago. So we have like an entire year of preparations. In Jamaica, I think once it's at the 5-year mark, like it's coming into the 5th year, they can essentially call an election at any time during that period. So I find that so interesting because what literally ends up happening is you have 2 months for an election. But an election during this time, I think, is a fairly bad idea because you are forcing people to go out in droves if they wish to vote, because I don't know that they have, a mail-in ballot system or anything like that. I think a lot of countries are always concerned about fraud for those other means of voting if you're not voting in person. And not only that, but for people who love to campaign, you get out there in the streets and you parlay and you dance around and you're, doing the most. I actually saw a politician who claims to have been protesting something or another. They actually got up and decided to, I can't remember what they were protesting, something in the community. And so they were out there laying in the middle of the street to demonstrate their protest. And of course, that drew a crowd. And that crowd meant that, more people are out in the streets. So I'm thinking, why are you doing that? To me, that's a little crazy. And it encourages more people to go out and about. So there you have it. Not good. So I think the spark or the spike that you will see in relation to their numbers right now is not even related. Here's the thing, Lisa. I don't think that's yet related to the election. I think those numbers will come later on. And here's why I say that. We know for a fact that unfortunately, some laboratory in Jamaica, and I don't know how many labs they have there, they're actually behind with their numbers by like a month. The test results are backed up. So if that's the case, the numbers that they're getting now are not new. And I I dare say not only are they not new, but they are so old that these numbers you will see coming into late September, and they could be far worse. So that's a little concerning. That is very, very concerning. So let's keep an eye on that situation, folks, because again, of course, we have a lot of family members and people, workers. Half of our population comes from Jamaica. So if they don't have it under control and they're trying to come in and, unfortunately, some of them come in illegally on the little drug boats and for other reasons, then we do have need to be concerned. So Sandra Millwood, good morning, Sandra. I hardly see you here, so thank you for checking in with us. Sandra has just informed us that there's been an earthquake in Jamaica at 7:27 a.m. So let me see if let me just see if Danica knows anything about this earthquake. So thank you so much, Sandra, for letting us know. Corrine says that her cousin felt it in St. Elizabeth. Wow. Good morning, Mitzi. Corrine, thank you for tuning in. Morna says they had the dog painted green and thousands of people. Yes, Jamaicans really get into their elections, like big time. I don't agree with painting a dog. I think that amounts to animal cruelty because it does. I mean, I'm pretty sure that what they were painting the dog with was not watercoloring or something that could be safer for a dog, because there are people who think that painting dogs are cute, and so they'll like dye their hairs with something that's relatively safe, like a watercoloring, food coloring, because they figure, well, if you can digest it in your innards, it might be safe. But I think there's certain things that you should not do to animals, and dogs in particular. And coloring them seems to be the height of cruelty and actually stupidity. Like, why would you color the dog? The dog can't vote, folks. I get that people think it might be funny or cute or whatever, but the poor dog can't vote. If you want to color anything, color yourself, because obviously you can vote. Yeah, that wasn't cool. Morna, thank you. So Irvlin says, I hope they're listening to your show this morning, bunch of jackasses. Then they want to penalize Bolt. What example are they setting? Well, give me 1 second. Speaking of Bolt, hold on 1 second, because nobody is setting a good example in Jamaica right now, I'm afraid. From Madonna to Bolt over the weekend. I'm gonna pull up the Bolt video because you guys have got to see this. So I don't think Bolt will be penalized. I think he has just come under some public scrutiny because of, and I want to make it clear, he actually was not the one who had the party. It was his girlfriend who threw him this surprise party. And you kind of would think that maybe the girlfriend would have had better sense, but I guess not. And so obviously he showed up, and there you go. I mean, you show up to a surprise party, everybody's expecting you to have a good time and to celebrate with your friends. And there were a bunch of celebrities there as well. We reported on this yesterday, actually. There are a number of celebrities in Jamaica who obviously want to attend Bolt's party because he is the man, And of course, hello, If Bolt's getting a party or having a party, a surprise party, and you are being invited, well, darn it, you show up because that's the thing to do. So now we have a number of celebrities who are, and I'm going to share this link with you guys. At least 2 high-profile celebrities have returned negative tests over the weekend after partying. So they were lucky. Dance hall heavyweight Beanie Man and megastar Usain Bolt, I always want to say Usain Bolt, celebrated their birthdays over the weekend. And of course, their parties, whilst they were a source of controversy for most, also grew very large crowds. So as a result of that, there are people who have been tested because they attended these parties and then they go, oh, whoa, I attended a party with hundreds, maybe even closer to 1,000 people. And now I'm worried. Don't ask. I don't know how any of it makes sense, folks. All I'm telling you is it's crazy, right? So let me just see if I can locate this video and show you guys. Where is my Bolt video? So did you guys see, this was kind of funny yesterday. I think it was NBC News. They put up a story because everybody's carrying this Bolt story. I mean, this is big news, right? So they put up a story about Bolt and it says world's fastest man tests positive for coronavirus. Except that when they put it up, they actually put up a picture of what's his name? Of Kevin Hart. And you know, listen, we are in the world of media and content creation, and mistakes happen every single day. And so, you know, when mistakes happen, people are there and ready to pounce on it, whether it's an honest mistake or whatever. Things just happen. And so it was a little bit funny from my perspective because I'm sure that Kevin Hart, who's a comedian, will see the humor in having captured the title, even if it was for a split second, of being the world's fastest man. So I posted it and I'm like, hey, check this out. I know Kevin would find it really, really funny. I mean, I don't know Kevin personally, but you know what I mean. He has that kind of humor that he would get the humor in it. And I could see him totally making like a viral video of this now about how he's now the world's fastest man. So yes, it is very, very amusing. But, you know, they said it was a mistake. They blamed the technology, basically saying that somehow the wrong photo got pulled into the article, which I know in the back end how this works a little bit. So anything's possible. All right, so let's check out the partying that happened by Bolts this weekend. Here we go, good folks. They were having a jolly good time. Got some video footage. There's a lot of video footage, obviously. Let me just pull this up here. Maybe. Any day now. Speaking of technology.
Come here. You see it more. Come here, you see it more. You don't have to worry about it. Remember your play. Wait the play. Okay, give me one. Remember you're an international based player. Give me the end. 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 Give me the end.
All right, folks. So yes, indeed, they were having a fabulous time. And listen, this is what we have said before about the spread of COVID, and people need to really comprehend and understand this, is that doing certain activities, and when you're dancing at a party, you are actually producing more bodily secretions, including this virus, if you have it, in terms of droplets that travel further. And they have, through research, they've actually shown that it can travel up to 16 feet. Now, you see those people are nowhere near 16 feet. They're not even 6 feet apart. The guy walks up to Bolt. He's touching him. Bolt is dancing. He's on the ground. He's sweating. They're all sweating, right? And they're all breathing, obviously, and breathing harder because they are exercising by way of dance. And we also know that that helps to push out the very fine particles from the virus. So, what does that mean? That everybody at that party, if you were there, you should get tested. And out of an abundance of caution, because now at least one person had it, and one person can spread it to hundreds of people. We've seen that happen. We've seen people going to funerals, and they talk about these super spreaders, and they are able to spread it to a ton of people. So at the end of the day, Bolt is he's extremely healthy. So we are hopeful for him. And we can hope that maybe he'll not even show any symptoms. He'll be completely symptomatic. At this point, he is, it appears. But his daughter, who is just a little baby, she was just born in May, now needs to probably get tested. His wife or girlfriend, long-term girlfriend, which I'm thinking he probably stays with her, needs to now get tested. So this concept of a super spreader, I want to talk about this a little bit because I think a lot of us don't understand what that is. Like, we've heard the term kind of floating around. We have heard them making it who's admitting, sorry, Evelyn, you've lost me. Who is admitting to having the virus? Sometimes when you guys put these comments, you gotta be a little bit more specific, because I don't know if you're speaking to Beanie Man or Bolt. Well, we know Bolt has it. That's now beyond any disputing, right? So listen to this information in terms of super spreaders. So super spreaders can, it says, as few as 10% of infected people may drive a whopping 80% of cases in specific types of situations. So in late February, here's an example, 175 executives from around the world went to a biotechnology conference. It was a leadership conference in Boston. Over 2 days, the attendees shook hands, talked about themselves, and they shared meals. Also in attendance was the new coronavirus, which they didn't know. Nobody was really paying attention to this in February quite yet. And so guess what? 7 people at the event were unknowingly infected with the microbe that causes COVID-19. And so they quickly spread it. And then those people brought it back to their homes. So 175 people, 7 people there at the event who have it, unbeknownst to them, right? They don't know they have it. They don't know anything about Corona yet. They're not taking any precautions. And so, yes, they then turn around and travel back into their homes, and they spread it like wildfire. Around the same time, the coronavirus is spreading among more than 100 people who went to a funeral in Albany, Georgia. And that led to an outbreak in the surrounding rural county, which posted one of the nation's highest cumulative incidences of COVID-19. The next month, a single individual with the disease infected 52 people during a 2.5-hour choir practice in Washington state. So it's not even like you got to hang out with each other all day long. 2.5 hours, one person infects 52 people. 2 of those people died. In Arkansas, an infected pastor and his wife passed the virus on to more than 30 attendees at a church event over the course of a few days, leading to at least 3 deaths. And those new cases spread to another 26 more people. So you add the 30 to the 26, really. And at least one of those died. So what scientists early on were beginning to realize is that there is something called a super spreader. So it's where one person infects a disproportionate number of other individuals. And this apparently has played an oversized role in the transmission of the virus. And because this virus is so easy to transmit, they know now it's in the air, it can be in the air particles for some time. You don't even necessarily need to have direct contact with a person, but definitely if you have direct contact, handshaking, hugging, whatever, whoop, the numbers have just gone up, right? So they have pinpointed, including that Boston conference, the funeral in Georgia, the pastor, they have pinpointed a number of what they're calling super spreaders. So what they're saying is, of the actual cases, and this is reports coming in from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, between 10 to 20% of infected people are responsible for 80% of the coronavirus spread. Wow. Think about that. Talk about the 80-20 rule. That is massive. So that is why it was so incredibly important that we not just lock our borders, but internally, we locked everything down. Stay home, folks. And remember when the government announced that, we were all moaning and groaning, why are we staying home? This isn't right, blah, blah, blah. I want to be able to go out. And that is why here in CMR, those people who were breaking curfew, who were breaking social distancing, they were at the salon getting their hair done, they were doing all of these other things. The reason why we were calling them jackasses is because clearly they did not appreciate the necessity to try to contain this virus as quickly as possible. And that's why the stay-at-home orders were so incredibly important to put in place. And not just put in place, but to actually adhere to. And so every single person who was willing to ignore those provisions, ignore the regulations, were putting us all at risk. Because any of them could have been and could have amounted to a super spreader. So for those of you who were very perturbed that the churches, were shut down and restricted, and you're like, well, why are churches not opening? Why are we not? We're a Christian community. Well, a Christian community should have a little bit of God-given common sense and know that large gatherings was like the number one way to spread it, because you have the potential having that 10 to 20% of your population in that large gathering, then spreading it to a lot of people. So I can't say enough about how important it is to have those stay-at-home provisions. And anywhere in the world where you saw the numbers decrease from the epicenter of this, which was Wuhan, China, even to right here in the Cayman Islands. It was important to adhere to those stay-at-home provisions. So when I had people saying to me, oh, well, what's the big deal if my daughter wants to go out and get her hair done? Like, who cares? Everybody's doing it. I'm like, yeah. If everybody's doing it and that's information that you have available to you, and you are sharing that information with me, I am beyond shocked by that bit of detailed information. Because if we have everybody out there doing this, I mean, really? That's crazy to me. That's crazy talk. But that's what, those are the exact same things that people are saying to me. What's the big deal? Why are you putting my daughter on Cayman Mall Road when everybody's doing it? And I thought, wow, okay, everybody's doing it. So now we know that these super spreaders exist, and it is important for those individuals. Of course, they don't know that they're super spreaders. You know how this works, but it is really, really important that they stay out of public spaces in particular. And I dare say they're probably the ones who will go into public spaces more than anybody else. So it's really, really important that we adhere to these provisions. So now that we no longer have any sort of, the mask provision has been moved away. The social distancing provision no longer exists. Sorry, I've got something in my eye here. A lot of people are saying, listen, they don't care what the regulations say at this particular time. They're going to still continue to engage in those sensible practices that have made us a relative success story. But I don't want to take our success story and try to believe that we are COVID-free. And a lot of people, were saying, the media, I know Reginald from Compass was asking some question about this. Well, why are we still at 250 if we're COVID-free? And the chief medical officer said, hold on a second. I never said that we were COVID-free. We're at level 2 minimal suppression. We do not believe that we have community spread any longer. We feel like we have a good grasp of this. The last 2 cases over the last month were actually imported cases into the jurisdiction. So, but that does not mean that we have no cases out there. And this is where people need to be extremely cautious. So I'm sorry, I've definitely got something in my eye that I need to tend to. So Andy, I know you're gonna hate this, but let us take a quick commercial break. Let me see what we got lined up here that we can play. Right, so one of our corporate sponsors, Miracle Brokers, why not? And let me just sort out whatever's in my eye, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Delivering these days can be frustrating. You can either wait forever or pay insane prices to get it faster. Even then, you still have no idea when it'll reach its destination. That's where Miracle Brokers comes in. We are flexible, reliable, and most importantly, fast. Whether you need household relocation, delivery services, full custom brokerage, overseas consolidation, commercial moving, packing materials, overseas consolidation, or inter-island moving, we offer exceptional logistics services all around the world that suits your individual needs. Just choose when, where, and what your delivery will be. You can even get it delivered same day. What's more, we'll choose the best courier for you based on your delivery requirements. This means less waiting and less hassle for you. Because we don't just say we care, this and much more make us a great option for you. Discover our shipping solutions and more at miraclebrokers.com today.
All right, folks, thank you guys so much for that. I'll just put in some eye drops so that hopefully we can get the eyes to settle down just a little bit here. So good morning, Karen. Buenos dias, Elizabeth. JD says, put a positive patient up in that congregation and let's see if they emerge from the pit of fire untouched. So yes, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, churches bring out a lot of people, and so do carnivals and all these other events. And that is why we had to lock them down. So Melinda, beautiful Melinda is joining us this morning. Melinda, thank you so much for tuning in. I know Melinda's always watching, but she's contributing this morning. And she says, exactly, following the rules to stay at home was necessary. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Hallelujah, girl. You know, hands up to our government and to those that didn't complain. This is not over. We still need to be cautious. And Dr. Lee says the threat is still out there. And common sense says it is still out there. Absolutely. And so even as we move forward with this level 2 minimum suppression, it's probably still a good idea, folks, to wash your hands often. You know, you go out and about, we've gotten used to being sprayed down every single place that we've gone. Now that might start to fall away a little bit. I don't know if the grocery stores will continue spraying anything down now that we're at level 2, because that's additional staff that they have to hire, right, to sit there to spray you down. But if they do, I'm still got a little bit of issue here with this eye. But if they do, by all means, you know, travel with your safe hand sanitizers. I personally do not use hand sanitizers. I wash, so I use soap and water and warm water a lot. So Barbara, good morning. This eye is still very much irritating me. I've got my eye drops here, but it's just taking a minute. I feel like something got in it and now it's just taking a minute to kind of settle down. Your eyes are amazing. Can I tell you, they have an amazing way of compensating for a lot of things. So I am hoping here shortly that, you know, you always do this where you take your eyelid and you kind of flip it to kind of bring out anything that could be in your eye. Anyway, good folks. Yes, so I think that at the end of the day, it's important to ensure that
it was about the third week in the cat.
Sure, sorry. To ensure that you know, we're still being safe. So we're pushing closer to 1 million deaths. We have over 820,000 deaths worldwide. The US still is in the number 1 spot at 178,535 deaths. Brazil is number 2 in terms of deaths with 116,000. Mexico is number 3 spot. So Mexico kind of moved up there at 61,450. India is now at the number 4 spot. The United Kingdom is still in the top 5, and Italy and France and Spain come right after the UK. So the UK, you know, we've not been saying a whole lot about the UK, but to be honest, they're no shining example of how to do the right thing either. Remember a couple months ago, we talked about how the UK somehow managed to waste several $1 million. I think it was a reported 8 million or something, or not 8 million. I think it was more like 4 million on 2 separate orders of coronavirus, some sort of, what was it? Some sort of a coronavirus testing kits, right? That didn't even work. And so Dawn says she's still going to be wearing her mask. Let's going to see what happened over the next few weeks. I feel like a lot of people will actually be wearing their mask over the coming weeks as well. Just to let this thing, you know, we saw again what happened in places like New Zealand, who thought that they had this completely under control. So it's very much raging. The US is having their, give me 1 second. I got to put some more eye drops in. 1 quick second for me, folks. Okay, I don't know if I'm just trying to see if there's actually something in the eye, but I can't see anything. So I've just put some more eye drops in. Yeah, so the US is having their own, they're going through their own election process as well. So naturally that has, meant that some of their folks are out and about. One thing I must say that has been incredibly encouraging is that their political parties have taken to, essentially do all their meetings and everything electronically. So they're all like virtual pre-recorded messages and stuff. So they have not been kind of in the same area. For the most part, I think the president and vice president, obviously nominees, have been kind of together. But on the Democratic side, they've definitely been wearing masks. I did see a photo of that. I don't know about the Republicans, because the Republicans, I think, are now in day 3 of their national convention. So the US is getting ready for November elections. I know that Trump wanted to postpone the elections, but I don't think that that is going to happen. So yeah, so I think that they're trying to do a bit more. Sorry. They are trying to do a bit more in terms of, at least the virtual side of things for their political campaign. It's a smart idea. There's a couple countries, I think New Zealand postponed their election by a month because they were scheduled to have an election in September, I believe. And I think they postponed that to October because of their outbreak there as well. And we haven't checked in with New Zealand in a minute, so we probably can do that a bit later on. But anyway, let's talk about, we're going to switch topics here a little bit, folks. Our protest this. Good morning, Debbie. Good morning, Summer. Our protest this topic of the day is education and employment. And trust me, they could each be separate topics that we could talk about for a very long time. So listen, the idea behind the protest this segment is that, as you guys know, there've been a number of protests over the past year, in excess of a year actually, in relation to the LGBT community, and most recently in relation to, first it was, okay, we're against same-sex marriages because we're trying to protect the religious sanctity of marriage. So that was the initial argument. When the court said, fine, yep, you have a right to protect the sanctity of marriage, no problem, but you don't have the right to deny them equal rights under the law, equal protections under law. So you can do that by way of a domestic partnership bill. All of a sudden, the argument was no longer, oh, we're against, marriage, changing the definition of a marriage between a man and a woman because the Bible says so. Now it's like, oh, no. We can't do domestic partnerships either. So what are you going to do is the question. How are you going to give these persons equal rights? Oh, the solution is not to give them equal rights. Got it. I'm with you. Well, that's not going to work. The courts have said, Court of Appeal has said, you are in contravention of your own constitution, of your own Bill of Rights, and this is an unacceptable, untenable position, and you have to fix it. So our legislators did a half-ass attempt at fixing it. I guess Alden did his best in the circumstances, knowing that his own government would never support it, members of his own government. So that failed, and now the UK government is pushing it through regardless. So now everyone's up in arms about the governor, and oh, he's the worst, and he's this, and he's that, and you never heard so many more interesting tidbits. So, needless to say, you know, at the end of the day, the religious community, some of them, have now decided to protest once again, which they did this weekend. And I have no issues with them protesting. I mean, that's their right to protest, I suppose. But it's always occurred to me that this protesting is very, it is very like you protest certain things and you don't protest other things. I find that so incredibly peculiar because there's so many things in this country that we're dealing with that we could be protesting that we are not. And, you know, yesterday we were talking about child abuse in this country. And I actually want to show you guys a video here of a man who found, let me just see if I can extract this video real quick. This man found out that he is a child molester living in his neighborhood, which, by the way, we have tons of them in the Cayman Islands. Some may be living right around the corner from you. And so in this case, this child molester was not just living in this man's neighborhood, but evidently he was out and about saying things to the man's children. So give me 1 second. I want you guys to watch this video because this is the kind of parent that I'm like, you know what? I support this parent 100% because there comes a time when you need to protest on behalf of your children. You need to protest the dismal educational system that we have grown to accept. Okay, give me 1 second here. Having a little bit of an issue pulling out this video. Okay, let me see if we can fix this. And in addition to that, you know, we have all of these other issues that we could be very much interested in dealing with, and we simply don't do it. Right? Because we just don't care. So let me just see if I can extract this video because this is the kind of parent I'm like, you know what? I want to be this kind of parent. I am this kind of parent where if you're a child molester and you even look at my daughter hard, I'm going to come and thump you in your face because we know how you have ruined people's lives and that you are at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to human beings. And I personally don't think child molesters should have any rights, but I know we live in a world that with human rights, we certainly can't abuse them. But I tell you what, this parent took a very staunch position by saying that you do not have the right to come and look at my daughter, and you don't have the right to talk to the kids in this neighborhood, because if you think you can do that without consequences, and apparently he was saying things based on the video, which I'm going to show you, he was actually saying things that were not appropriate to these children. So I think the parent was upset for good reason. This wasn't just, oh, we know you're a child molester and we don't want you in the neighborhood. That complicates it, but it was because of what he was saying to the child. So let's just have a look at this video.
Scotty.
How old are you? How old are you? How old are you? How fucking old are you? You got something to fucking say to a 6-year-old? Huh? You got something to say to a fucking 6-year-old bitch?
Scotty.
No, your fucking story's over. Let me fucking tell you something.
Scotty.
Tell you something, bitch. Let me fucking tell you something.
Yeah. We told you multiple times to leave them girls alone.
In this motherfucking neighborhood. You're fucking sorry, ain't motherfucking shit.
I ain't doing it anymore.
No, you ain't gonna fucking live here no more. Get your motherfucking ass.
Okay.
I'm gonna fucking kill you, motherfucker.
I'm getting out
You
of
understand me?
Yeah.
You got anything to say to a 6-year-old child?
No, sir.
Huh?
No.
3 of them?
No.
My daughter can't play in her fucking front yard because you want to set your perverted ass. I know about you, motherfucker. You're a goddamn fuck Barbie. Fuck you. I'm telling you right fucking now. You have no reason to speak to any fucking child. Any motherfucking child. You're lucky I'm slapping you or I break your fucking jaw. You understand me?
Yes, sir.
You fucking understand me, motherfucker? I'm telling you right now, I know you're a registered fucking sex offender. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. You're goddamn right you are. So what did you have to fucking say to my 6-year-old daughter?
No one.
You don't need to say hi to her, do you?
No, sir.
I catch you one more fucking time talking to a kid, it'll be the last day you're fucking breathing. You understand me, motherfucker?
Yes, sir.
You're getting off easy. Not one of them was a punch.
Yes, sir.
I could kill you right fucking now. You understand me?
Yes, sir.
Don't ever speak to another one of my fucking kids. It'll be the last day you're breathing.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir, ain't shit. You fucking do it or you're dead. You understand me, motherfucker? Do you fucking understand me?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's what happens when a parent has had enough. So they have said in this video that they have warned this guy before about talking to their children. And as most child molesters do, they ignore a lot of warnings and they simply do not care. So, you know, yeah, that parent is obviously very upset. But I don't know that I can blame that parent. I mean, what are you going to do? You keep telling someone, leave my kid alone, don't talk to the kids in this neighborhood, and they continue to do so. Well, then, hello. You know, you slap him around a couple times so that he can get the right message this time, hopefully. But you know, what we know about child molesters is he's not going to get the right message. This guy can't help himself. So this is why parents need to be very, very vigilant in what they do. Big shout out to Allison, who was watching the show last night, and said that she really appreciated the fact that we talked about child abuse and talked about some of the things that we can do to prevent the abuse of our children in this community. And one of the things you can always do is educate your children. So now we need to talk about the dismal state of education in this country. There's some information floating around statistically about the fact that Cayman's public education system in particular is failing our children. And every single couple years, you know, we get test results that demonstrate that our children are not meeting the benchmarks that are set for them. They're not doing particularly well on standardized tests. They are going in the workplace being woefully unprepared, not just in terms of their skill set, their knowledge base, but even their work ethic and just, you know, soft skills like how to show up on the job properly dressed and present yourself, how to communicate well in the workplace, how to string together a couple words to make a basic sentence. And all of these things are very, very alarming. Yesterday, the Minister of Education, Juliana O'Connor-Connolly, made an announcement. Actually, I think she made it last week at the annual conference that they have every year, like a sort of welcoming teachers back and going through, you know, some of the things that people can expect in the coming year, the teachers. So it's a I forget what they call it back, welcome back conference or something for teachers. So they do this every year, and they've been doing it for, I think, a number of years now. And so at that event, she indicated that teachers will finally be getting what she considers a livable minimum wage of $5,000 per month. And that news was received when we put it up yesterday. It was received positively by most people. However, there were people who said to me, I hold on a second here. What about the fact that our kids are still failing in schools? What about the fact that we have no, acceptable levels of results that are coming out of our schools? And why isn't that tied into compensation? Well, I think all the teachers would probably quit if we did that, because, they're of the opinion that there's only so much that they can do as teachers with the available resources. But someone else said to me, let me just pull this one up because I'm trying to remember exactly what this person said, but they said, hold on a second. If many of them spoke proper English, it wouldn't be so bad. And this is the teachers they're talking about, not the students. So they said if many of them spoke proper English, it wouldn't be so bad. But the number of times I've heard words in the wrong tense, and then they put that little like emoji face, it was like, ugh. So they said, how about fix the system first before giving them a minimum wage guarantee of $5,000 per month? Now, to be honest with you, another person said, what the WTF? Half of them that I've encountered can't speak proper English. Ugh, elections are coming up. Now, I think a lot of people realize that during COVID, teachers were working around the clock the same way. They were doing their online sessions or making sure that your children had access to ongoing education during some very trying times. And I think a lot of parents became a little bit more appreciative of the job that teachers do during the whole pandemic, because they finally, for a change, had to stay home with their own children. They're like, whoo, these kids are a handful. They're little monsters. I mean, you heard parents, like, when can we hurry up and get them back to school? And I'm thinking, so those 7 or 8 hours a day that your kids are in the government's care or in the care of private schools, and you probably get to forget that you even have children for a minute, you expect the teachers to be behavioral experts, linguists, teachers. They got to be teaching your kids, mathematicians, scientists, whatever other things that they're into, what other subjects they're teaching. And then, you get a couple months of having your kids at home, and all of a sudden you're like, take them back. We don't want them. Please hurry up and reopen schools. I mean, people were demanding that schools be reopened way before this COVID situation was over. And it's not because they understood the implications of having their children stay at home. It was more about the fact that they just couldn't handle them anymore. They were sick and tired of 1 child, 2 children, 3 children, whatever amount of kids that they had. And I kind of chuckled at it when I saw these comments on social media, because it occurred to me that these poor parents don't really appreciate what the teachers are going through on a daily basis. So in principle, I don't have an issue with a pay increase or livable wage. I think that maybe what will now happen is you will potentially attract certain qualified professionals who they don't need to be making $10,000 a month, but at the same time, they can't get away with making $3,000 a month. So this livable wage minimum will at least let teachers know that even if you're coming in at the bottom, you've got a degree, you've got a master's degree or whatever, you could potentially survive in Cayman off of $5,000 a month. So I thought that was a positive move. And I do understand a lot of people, of course, are going to talk about the whole elections thing and that they think it's just a ploy during the election time. But it's actually been something that has been in the works for a number of years. So what I would say is, at the end of the day, our educational system does fail our children. I mean, there's probably no other way to cut it. We are, talking about we don't have the money to spend on education, but we can certainly find it to spend in so many other ways. And I mean, really and truly, some of the money that we waste in this country is quite interesting. And it becomes a matter of priority. Why are our children not learning? There have been reports that have been produced over 30, 40 years about what is happening with the educational system here in the Cayman Islands. And it's like one report after the next, and nothing ever happens. How many reports do you need before we can address this? Like, seriously, how many reports are we going to table? And you guys remember some years ago, we talked about this just a couple of days ago. There was an educational report that came out that was not, how can I put this? It was not the best report. It was an honest assessment of what was happening. And at the time, we had a chief officer. What was her name again? Something Rodriguez. I can't remember her name now. And she actually changed the report. Was it Maria Rodriguez? Something. Her name will come to me in a second, her first name. But anyway, she was a chief officer for education. And she changed the report to be less scathing and more favorable to the educational system. So I'm thinking, hold on a second. We're going to spend money. And I mean, listen, when they go out there, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, on reports, so-called experts that are going to come in, do an assessment, and all of these things, and then they hand you a report that you paid good money for, which a lot of them are just cookie cutters. They're copy and pasting the information. And then what happens? You get the report and you go, oh my God, they say our educational system is failing. And so we have to now doctor this report. What? And you still get to keep your job, by the way. Back in 2015, Tara Rivers, who was the education minister at the time, was talking about how accountability will lead to raised education standards. So listen to this. This was a message for that came out on World Teachers Day back in May of 2015. 5 years ago, we're still talking about this. 10 years ago, we were still talking about this. 15 years ago, we were still talking about this. So this was just weeks after the publication of a damning report from school inspectors and consultants, which concluded that the standard of education in the Cayman Islands was poor. Tara Rivers acknowledged that the problems lie with the system, the department, and the ministry as much as with schools. Wow. At least she took some accountability, but nothing really was ever done in terms of fixing it. So at the time, she said that more accountability would lead to improvements. And she was quoted as saying, the overarching goal of the work to be done this academic year will be in raising standards of education through increased accountability. As she pointed to a relentless, these are her words, an unequivocal approach to raising standards and increasing accountability at all levels. Please tell me how that has been done. That was 2015. How have the standards been raised? So consultants and inspectors said there is an achievement gap for Cayman students compared to those in the UK and other leading economies. They released an education review by management consultants, which had a baseline inspection. And of course, government officials launched another new strategic action plan aimed at improving teaching standards and leadership in local schools. I am so sick and tired of hearing about government launching action plans that never actually result in any action coming forward or anything really being achieved. So this inspector's report was very critical of the local educational system. And so then they had a 2015 to 2016 plan of action, an overview document. I don't even know if we should bother looking at that because honestly, I'm pretty sure nothing has been done. The review actually said that most Caymanian schools would be in a special measures if they were in the UK, meaning that they'd be considered failing schools. And the baseline inspection found achievements were below expectations with, in quotations, significant underperformance for all stages of education, which the inspector said was down to the quality of teaching. So the quality of teaching was the problem. And so I do understand why some people would say, if the quality of teaching is the problem, why are we giving these individuals a pay increase? Well, that's the $1 million question. However, I am hopeful. I'm trying to look at the positive side of this, that what will come out of it is improved teachers. So people who want to get into the profession for not just a love of teaching, but they are actually qualified individuals. Because let's face it, if you are paying someone $5,000 a month, you should have higher expectations of them. I would certainly hope so. And you should be able to attract, in my opinion, persons who are more apt to be actually good at their jobs. And we need to start weeding out the bad teachers. Let me be quite frank and honest here. If you are in a job anywhere else, in private sector in particular, not so much public sector, because public sector, it's kind of hard for them to weed out the bad ones. And we're going to soon be talking about some of those bad ones, because we do hear a lot of stories about some of those bad ones in government, even in management. There's one right now I keep hearing about in immigration who doesn't even want to work. She's always got this excuse for sickness, that excuse for sickness. And listen, maybe you do have some sort of chronic issue. You know, if it's not blood pressure one week, it's something else. But in that case, you need to be medical boarded. You don't stay in a job and continue to collect a salary. Don't do the job. And then other people have to pick up the slack so that you can make a full salary. If you are unable, if you're incapable of working, then there are options for you to be pushed into early retirement. And I think in government, they call that being medical boarded. But people think that they can take off 8 months out of the year saying that they're sick, and they go from one position to the next. Senior managers never do any work and still collect a full salary. That can't be right. So Irvelyn and JD, thank you so much for your comments. Good morning to Tricia. So JD makes a comment about the protests. Pastor Christopher Rose said that the reason for the protest is we love you and we want to see you change. JD, did you read any of the placards that people are holding up at that protest? I'm not so sure that I saw love in that, and I certainly didn't hear much outside of maybe Pastor Rose talking about love. But why would you want to change someone? That has nothing to do with you. You're not God. I mean, at the end of the day, right? That's not your job. Back to education. So Bruce says, while I don't blame the parent for the problem, oh, sorry. No, that was back to that video. So Bruce was saying, I don't blame the parent. The problem is that the parent could be charged with assault as a result of the video going public. Well, Bruce, I don't think any jury would convict him on that. I think really people need to understand that you actually have a legal right to protect your children with reasonable force. So him kind of getting in his face a little bit and saying, back off my kids, stop talking to my kids. Yeah, he slapped him a little bit, but it's one of those situations where if the incident just happened, then it would be a defense, if you will, that he went over and said, listen, we need to talk and you need to lay the F off my kids. Stop talking to them, stop. So I don't see anything that, but you know, listen, if it was me, I'd definitely be charged with assault. You know how that goes. So, but I wouldn't worry about it. Nobody's gonna listen. If this dude had any sense, he'd probably move from the neighborhood. Melinda says, oh my gosh, don't get me started on the education topic. Yes, Melinda, why aren't we protesting about the dismal state of education in this country? Evelyn says the teachers need the raise. Bruce points out that children are failing because of failed parents. The education system does need reform, but we also need to do something about parents that simply don't care. Maybe we need to introduce meaningful school fees to get the attention of careless parents. Well, Bruce, that is one discussion that I was recently having with someone. And they were saying that, listen, when you give away something or you have something for free, people never appreciate it. And I understand that. However, my concern about that is if you have parents who can't even afford to pay for school lunches, which are a necessity, right? How on earth are you going to charge them for school fees and expect that they're actually going to pay? I think what you're going to end up having is parents who can't pay for it, they're going to still expect their kids to go to school. I mean, it's mandatory that your children go to school. So the government will have to pick up the slack. And does that really resolve the issue then, if you know what I mean? I'm kind of torn about the whole payment thing. I do understand the logic behind, okay, people don't value anything if you give it to them for free. But at the same time, is our educational system in the current state that it's in even worth paying for? That's another question. I mean, I wouldn't mind putting my child in government school, except when I started to recently get some feedback about reception schools and, you know, first grade, basically primary school, I'm hearing from other parents that the kids are out of control. The teachers can't control them. As a result, other kids are not learning. And let's be quite honest. If you are a parent that is doing your best, right, with your kids, and there are other parents out there who are not, and And I think it's fair to say that those who are not are always the minority, 10 to 20%, maybe. I don't think it's the vast majority of people. But those 10 to 20 percenters can make life so miserable for everybody else. They're like super spreaders of just destruction in the community. So those are the 10 to 20% that end up at Northwood. Those are the 10 to 20% that go into our schools. Causing havoc. And as a result, nobody else can learn. Nobody else can be in a conducive environment. So what are you going to do? I agree with Bruce. There is the issue of parents needing to shape up and do a better job. And then the question becomes, well, how are you going to hold those parents accountable? Before you can talk about holding parents accountable, you need to first make sure that there are resources available to them, the support system in place to allow them to do the job that they need to be doing. Because I'm of the firm opinion that if most people, when they know better, they do better. So this is what I mean when I say things like we need to be talking about some of the social issues in this country. And some of those social issues include the fact that in the region, in our country, we have been having a lot of dysfunctionality that simply passes on from one generation to the next. And there is little to no addressing those issues pretty much. And by and large, what we have done is we put a Band-Aid on it, right? So we isolate those persons into like areas and we kind of write them off. We write off their kids. We write off the parents. We're like, okay, well, we know that that kid's going to end up in jail. We know that that kid is going to have, a dismal existence. And we are somehow happy to ignore those issues. And this is what I keep saying. Listen, an issue does not disappear on its own. And you cannot ignore problems, whether it's in your personal life or otherwise, and expect that it's ever going to resolve itself. And so what ends up happening is the issues get worse. They magnify themselves, right? One generation might respond to a particular issue in a given way. The next generation has even less coping skills, less ability to kind of suppress some of what has been happening to them. So they will act out even more. And then they're going to pass it on to their kids. And it just becomes an extremely vicious cycle. The things that impact our children happen in the home. Domestic abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, right? Parents who are more concerned about looking good on the exterior, getting hair done, nails done, toes done, everything done, than spending time with your children and trying to instill values in your children, respect for others. So I completely agree with Bruce when he says we also need to be looking at the homes. Because teachers are there to teach. And I dare say if they had fewer of these issues to contend with, fewer hungry children, because you show up to school hungry, you can't learn. Listen, I'm an adult, and when I'm hungry, the brain, this is a physiological response, the brain starts to like get a little bit wonky. And I can feel physically when I'm not eating properly, I don't have a meal in the morning. I can see that I'm not concentrating and can't focus as much. That's why a lot of times I got my little bowl right here. You don't often see it. This is my daughter's bowl, actually. And I nibble on apples in the morning a lot because I feel like this is a little bit of a healthier fruit. It's not as heavy, so I can just quickly, crunch on it. If kids are going to school in the mornings, they don't get a meal, they don't get a balanced meal. What exactly are we expecting of them in terms of performance? Listen, I grew up in a home, and I was talking to someone yesterday. I was kind of reminiscing a little bit yesterday. But I grew up with my aunt who believed in a home cooked meal. Trust me, every single day of her life, practically, she got up and cooked. And that is just what she did. I get that was a different era. She got up and cooked breakfast. Lunch was at school. When I got home, I had a little snack. And her and I would sit down and we would watch, I'll tell you what soap opera we were into at the time. We would watch Guiding Light. Came on right after like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever when I got home from school. And we would sit down. That was like my little break between school and then to start homework. So I'd get about an hour or so break and we'd sit down and we'd watch Guiding Light, keep up with that. I'd have my mid-afternoon snack. And then it was time for me to get involved in my homework. And as many of you know, my story is one of coming from a broken home. So when I talk about these dysfunctional homes, Bruce talks about here single mother syndrome, and we don't want to accept that inconvenience truth. Bruce, I'm willing to tell you that I can accept it because I'm a product of that. I understand exactly what happens in those situations. And they are complex as they are simple. It's easy for us on the outside to say, well, why did my mother decide to have 3 children with a married man? Questions. I mean, but I can sit back and judge, but I don't know her life story in that moment. And I don't know what she was going through or why she was attracted to that situation or what she herself was running from. But this is what happens when there are not structures in place to support mothers. We talked about on Monday deadbeat fathers. And if you don't think that they're contributing to this situation equally, then we need to think again. Because they up and leave a mother with 4 or 5 children. Even back in the 70s, what was she to do? Right? She starts to lean on another man, even if it's not her man. If the man happens to be married, but he's nice to her, or he's willing to help her out financially, or whatever. And so people will make these poor decisions because of a lot of the life circumstances that they find themselves in. So we're not always here to try to judge that, but we need to examine it in order to learn from it and to do better from one generation to the next. Bruce, I understand fully the difficulties of trying to correct a dysfunctional family history and what that means for me at a personal level. And I think it's different when you haven't lived it. You don't understand the daily struggles. And that's why I really rate anybody who reaches out to people in situations like this, those single mothers, and just takes a minute to try to talk to them, to understand what it is that they are going through. Because they are dealing with a lot. And you look at people on the outside and you talk about their failures and you talk about how poorly they're doing, but you often don't understand the struggles that they're having to deal with. Oftentimes just being ill-equipped even to be a parent. And this is where we need more parenting classes. We need online access to these parenting classes. We need DCFS paying a very keen attention because, listen, I've had a family member who was working in the primary school system here in the Cayman Islands for many, many years. And that individual could pinpoint with 100% accuracy every single year the kids coming into her school. That kid, and that kid are the ones who need the most help. Because in 10, 15 years, they're going to be staying at our expense at Her Majesty's Palace. And year after year, you see it, something come out in the news. Okay, this kid has just killed somebody, or they're involved in a robbery. And this person's like, I remember them. Back in this year, they were in year 1, they were in year 2, they were in reception, and I said, this kid, and this kid. So if teachers who are on the front line are able to pinpoint with such a degree of accuracy to be able to know which children need the extra help, how can it be said then that we can't address this issue? You've done the hardest part, actually, which is actually identifying the children who need the help and their families. So it's not just a child by themselves. Obviously, the children don't live in isolation. So we need intense programs where people can go into those homes and offer those parents the help that they need. And if it's a worst case scenario where the parents are unwilling to take the help, they're incapable of taking the help, because some people just even emotionally, psychologically, they're I don't want to say anybody's beyond repair, but in that moment, they can't be repaired enough to allow their children to stay in that environment. Then listen to me, folks. We have to be prepared, as Bruce rightfully said, to accept this as an inconvenient truth, the cold hard truth, and simply deal with those situations by removing the children, trying to find good foster care environments and situations for them to be in. But we all have a part to play. I just realized we're actually out of time, but listen, we all have a part to play in this. So it's easy again for us to be looking in through the window with our little magnifying glasses and being hypercritical of others. That's the easy part. The hard part is us now saying, right, how do I become part of the solution? What can I do to help the situation? What role can I play? Can I become a big sister or a big brother? Not even necessarily with that organization, but you see a kid in your neighborhood coming from a poor home or a poor environment where they need, and when I say poor, I don't mean poverty in terms of money necessarily, poor in terms of like the structure of the home and those sorts of things. And they need that extra help. They need that example of what you can do with your life. Take them under your wing. I've done it to certain family members because I'm like, that was me. That could be me, and that was me at some point. So I'll say, hey, can I have your kid on Saturdays? Just hang out with me. And you talk to them, you let them know that there is a different way of living. Not everybody lives in turmoil. Not everyone, lives in a home where abuse is the norm, or yelling and screaming and all this kind of stuff is the norm. There are people who live in households that are filled with love. And there are people who live in households that focus on self-improvement every single day. They accept that they're not perfect and that they need to be learning. They need to be educating themselves. They need to be involved in the community. They need to be giving back to others. The biggest thing you can do, and this has been the biggest impact in my life when I moved away, is to show a child that they have options, that what you may have been exposed to and what you may have been raised in isn't the end all and be all. That's not it. And in fact, that may be a small part of how the entire world lives and how the entire world operates. But to let a child know that, wow, there are possibilities for me. There are options out there for me. I can do better. I can one day aspire to go to university if I work hard and I have the grades and somebody gives me a break. And so those opportunities can be made available to me. And there will be people who will see my struggle and want to help me because they say, you know what? This person is working hard. And I see something in them. I see a drive in them. And we have to encourage that drive in our young people. When we see a glimmer of hope, someone with artistic capabilities, someone who is good with their hands, it could be a great repairman, mechanic, they could be a good social worker because they've had the experience of living in dysfunctional homes and in dysfunctional environments themselves, but they've been able to pull themselves out of it. So Melinda says some children have learning needs that don't get the attention that they need. And this is an issue. I've actually been speaking to Alric about this recently because a lot of parents are, approaching him about they are trying to do the right thing. And this is what really pisses me off, Bruce. Yes, we have those parents who aren't doing the right thing, but you have a lot of parents who are doing their best with their kids and they're doing the right thing. And they need a little bit of help. They need a little bit of help from the system. And the system, which we support through duties and taxations and whatever, the system is failing us. And that will compound the situation 1,000 times because the system failing us impacts everyone across the board, not just those 10 or 20% that come from problem homes. So Bruce is talking about making excuses for parents. Bruce, I understand what you're saying. I don't know how old you are, but I would say that you come from a very different time as well. When parents were not having to work 2 or 3 jobs to make a minimum wage salary to be able to pay their CUC bills. But Bruce, depending on your age, you may also come from an era where fathers here in the Cayman Islands left and went off to sea, and basically all they were doing was providing financial support. That was better than nothing. So the rearing of children was left primarily to the mothers, the grandmothers and grandparents and others in the community. But you had that community support. That has by and large fallen away. We are so insular now, it's like you and your household and that's it. So we have always had, in my opinion, the absentee father situation. They were not necessarily deadbeat fathers in the sense that, they would still send a financial contribution, but some of them were deadbeat fathers. Some of them went off to sea and left wives and women here pregnant with children, and they never came back to Cayman even. There is a whole history of what our seamen did that, trust me, if we talked to some of them, we would be shocked and surprised. And so these issues are nothing new. Yes, there's some parents like yours who were good parents. Your mom was there with you, your dad was there with you, able to do your homework, reviewing your homework, spending time with you, had a good meal. But you know what, Bruce? There's still a lot of parents who do that. There are a lot of parents who do that even now. So I don't want us to castigate all parents and say that all parents are neglecting their children and all parents are not giving their kids, the proper meals and spending time with them. That's not the truth. And I want to believe that also is not representative of the vast majority of parents. You know, my husband is the best father in the world. He has, I could show you the stack of like learning materials that we have for a daughter. She was only 4, and he said to me yesterday, stop buying her learning materials. I think we got enough now to work with. But we've got flashcards. And so she's only 4. So, you know, if you say to her, oh, we're going to sit down and do homework, she's like, well, I don't want to do that. So we play games with her to make it fun. So she's very much into, you know, at 4, she likes pretend friends and pretend whatever. So we do like a whole pretend classroom thing with her. My husband has been doing this for a little bit now, where he'll go through her flashcards, but he makes it so much fun that she doesn't even know that she's learning. She's just like, oh, we're playing pretend school. This is fun. And in pretend school, she's got all her little stuffed animals, and they have the same names as her classmates in school. And then I'm also one of the students, so I sit down there and I pretend to be another 4-year-old student, and we go through the alphabet, and we do our flashcards, and we do our phonics and all that sort of thing. We all have to be willing to make sacrifices, folks. When you have children, you do get that your life is no longer your own. You've got to sacrifice for them. Otherwise, why bother having them at all? You've got to invest time in them, because that time, as Bruce rightfully said, whether it's sitting down at a dinner table, talking with them, doing homework, all these sorts of things, that time you can't put a price tag on. You're passing on your values, your value system, and you're teaching them, you know, beyond what they could learn in the classroom environment. And does that require sacrifices? Of course it does. Does that mean that there are times when I would like to be out past 8 o'clock at night and I can't? Yep, all the time. I have one girlfriend, I've been spending a little bit of time with her recently. And she was saying, yeah, you know, you decided to become a mom a little bit later in life, which is true. But that does restrict me. I spend time with her. That means that I don't spend time with other people. I don't go out and hang out in the bars. I'm not out there drinking. I'm not going to parties. I've always found it peculiar. People in their 30s and 40s who have kids, 3, 4 kids, can still find all this time to be having like the best single life, partying and going out, hanging out with their friends all the time. I'm like, when do they have time for the kids? So there has to be a sacrifice, Bruce. I appreciate the line that you're taking. But yes, there are things that give as a result of that. Melinda, I'll let you have the final word on today's topic before we wrap it up. So Melinda says, Bruce, understand that, but not all kids are strong as others. And I agree with Sandra's verbal response to your comment above. As a single mother, I would opt not to eat to feed my kids when I don't have enough. Not all parents are the same, and not all parents know how. Please don't judge. Help. Be a mentor, please. Perfect words, folks, to end the program on today. Melinda, Bruce, Evelyn, Sue, thank you all so much for tuning in to the program this morning. Good show. Love it. Tomorrow is Thursday already, and we will continue the discussion. So tomorrow's protest topic is mental health. Why aren't we protesting about mental health in the Cayman Islands? That's a good one. And of course, tomorrow is also Tech Thursday. So please join us as we review and talk about some of the tech things that have happened in the last week. There's been a big fight between Apple and some gaming platform. Have you guys heard much about this? We can look into that on tomorrow's show. Now, this was my little funny thing that someone sent me for today that made me chuckle. This one says, year quill, hibernate, good for a year, sleep through the entire end of 2020 fast, 2 liquid caps from the makers of Vicks NyQuil, sleep until 2021. Because they're saying, listen, this year has been so rough on all of us that we could probably do with the sleep hibernation break. Anyway, folks, I'm so thankful because in my opinion, it could always be worse. And as Irvlyn has just said, let's go out there, good folks, and have a good, productive day. Go get them, do the best, and be the best that you can be. Have a good one.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.